Today we are going to talk about transformations. We're going to talk about two today, and we're going to talk about the other two tomorrow. So there are actually four basic types of transformations. There are translations, reflections, rotations, and dilations. So we're going to talk about the first two today. We're going to talk about translation and reflection. We're going to look at what they are and how we actually do them on an actual graph. So let's go down and look. A translation, it means moving your shape without rotating, resizing, or anything else. So what happens is you move every point the same distance in the same direction. Okay, so you move every point, same distance, same direction. So the key word for translation that you're going to want to remember is slide. Okay, you're just going to slide whatever shape they give us around our graph. Same distance, same direction. Okay, so here are some examples. Again, keyword, slide. Okay, so if we look at this first picture, they actually have two translations going on here. Okay, and slide, you're going to move up, down, left, or right. So up, down, left, or right. So if we look at this first picture, this image right here is called our pre-image. Okay, it's the image that we're going to do the transformation to. And so if you look right here, okay, they are moving it to the right. Okay, and so what you want to figure out is, well, how many did they move it? How many spaces did they move it? So if you look at point A, okay, the new point A, and they call this A prime, we want to know how far they moved it. So you just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they moved it to the right 5. And so for this to be a true translation, all of our other points will have to move exactly 5 to the right. So if we look at point B right here, okay, this should be B, they just call it prime. We got to make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that looks good. And then we're going to check point C. Okay, this would be C prime. Let's just make sure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this translation, they moved right 5 units. All your points moved right to 5 units. Now, you can also move down instead of up in this particular picture. So let's look at this going down. Okay, again, you always start with your pre-image. This would be my pre-image, the ABC. Now, we move down. Again, point A appears to be here. Okay, and since we have already did A prime, we're going to do A double prime. Kind of looks like an 11. But now we have to figure out what was the translation. So they slid it down. We can see that. But how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so they translated down 6. Now, we want to verify that for C and B, so we're going to count again and make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, that looks good. Okay, again, we'd call this B, since we already have a B prime, double prime. And then we check C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Good. Okay, again, if it's a true translation, they all move the same direction for the same amount. So that translation went down 6. Okay, so we slid it to the right 5. Then we did a different translation. We slid it down 6. Okay, and once you translate it, once you do that transformation, okay, that is called, they just call this your image. Okay, your pre-image is the image they give you that they want you to move around. So let's see if we can figure out what the translations are here. So again, your pre-image is always the one that just has the letters, okay, no prime or double prime. So my pre-image is right here where they have A, B, and C. This is my pre-image. And so let's look at this translation to the left. Okay, let's look at that. So if I notice point A is right here, this would be A prime. Okay. So we got to figure out, how did they get there? And you just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it looks like this slide or translation is going to go left 3. We want to verify that with our other 2 points. So we want to verify that and this point. So this would be C prime. Let's make sure it's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, we didn't go left 3, did we? Let's fix that. Let me fix that. We actually went left 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was a typo. All right, let's try that again. So is C in the right place? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, that works. And now we have to look at this, make sure, we're going to call it B prime. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yes, that translation was to the left 5. Everything, all your points slid left 5. Now, let's look at this one. How do we get from our pre-image? Again, remember, this is called your pre-image, the one that they want you to transform. Okay, they want us to translate, so we know we're sliding. So let's look here. Here would be, again, we're going to call it A double prime. Okay, so let's see. Let me change colors. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it appears our translation is going up 6. Okay, so let's check our other points. We need to check this point here. That would be B double prime. Make sure it's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we're good to go on that one. And we need to check this point. Okay, and I'm going to erase this so we can see it a little better. Try not to erase everything. Make sure that it went up 6 from this point. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It did. So that's C double prime. Okay, and we call that, we translated up 6. Okay, so that's all translation is. Now, you can have a double translation, which will actually make it look like your pre-image went diagonally, but you would go up or down and then left or right to actually get a diagonal look. All right, so let's look at some examples that they're going to give us. So it says translate the pre-image. So there's my pre-image. It looks like a rectangle. Okay. Now, they're not going to write in words which way they want you to go, up, down, left, or right. What they are going to do is they're going to give it to you in this format right here. Okay. And it explains what they want you to do. What you have to do is decipher it. So a couple things you got to remember. When we are graphing, your x variable, your x number, which is this first number in your ordered pair. Remember, to graph that, you either go left or you go right. Okay. When do we go left? When x is negative. When do we go right? When x is positive. Your second letter is always your y in your ordered pair. Okay, and so remember, with y, that's your up or your down. When do we go up? When it is positive. When do we go down? When the number is negative. So that's what they're trying to tell us here. Okay? In this box, they're saying your pre-image is ABCD. It's that lovely rectangle. Notice how they've written it for us. Okay, the X, okay, they don't want you to do anything to the X. They don't want you to go left. They don't want you to go right. Okay, because all they have is just the X. But notice the Y minus 3. Okay, what that says to you, or what you have to understand that to mean, is because they want you to go -3. Okay, Y's go up or down. Okay, since it's negative, they want us to move all of our points down 3. Okay, and again, the way I figured that out is I looked up here at this part right here. I looked at what they said to do to X. X is by itself. We do nothing. I looked here. It says Y minus 3. Okay, the -3. Y means we go up or down. Since it's negative, we go down 3. And you need to write that. Okay, you'll see on the practice that you have to do that we're going to ask you to write that down, what you're doing to your translation. So basically, to translate this, we just got to count every point down 3. So how do we do that? We go up to our pre-image. Okay. I'm just going to, it doesn't matter where you start. Okay, everybody could start with a different point if they wanted to, but I'm just going to start with C, and I'm going to move it down 3. So I'm going to, and you have to make sure you count, and that's why I do the little 1, 2, 3, because sometimes when you translate, it's going to end up on top of or overlapping your picture. So I went down 3, and once you go down 3, you could erase that so that you don't have a bunch of stuff on your picture, but I went down 3, so I moved C down 3. I call that C prime to show that I translated, that I moved it. Now I'm going to do the same thing for D. Here's D. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. This is where I want to end up. Okay, so I'm going to take the counting off. Now, you can probably do it without. That's fine. Just be careful. Okay, and then I'm going to connect my C to D, because you are going to redraw the picture because you're sliding it. So now we got to move the B down 3. So 1, 2, 3. That would put me right here. Okay, and again, when you move it, you give it the little prime to show that you translated it. And then I got to move the A, 1, 2, 3. So that would put me right there. And I'm going to call that A prime. Okay, and then you connect, you redraw the shape, and it should look exactly the same. It should just look like you slid it down. Okay, so we slid it down because it was Y minus 3. Y goes up or down. The 3 is negative, so that means we go down. So there is my translation. All right, let's look at another one. All right, there's my pre-image. Okay, it's a triangle this time. I got my point A, point B, point C. This is my rule. Okay, so what I notice is today, or on this one, it says X minus 2. Okay, so they want us to do something with our X value. Remember, your X value goes up or it goes down. Because it's -2, that means the 2 is negative. Okay. I'm sorry, it means we want to go left or right. Did I say up or down? I meant left or right. Your X value either goes right or left. And so right if it was a positive, left if it's a negative. So because it's -2, X minus 2, they want us to go left 2. That is the translation they're asking us to make. We check the Y because sometimes they'll have us do something to the Y also. But we notice it's just Y by itself. So all we're going to do is slide every point left 2. So again, it doesn't matter which point you start with. I'm going to start with A. To the left 2, 1, 2, puts me right here at the origin. So I put a new dot. And again, because I have translated it, I call it A prime. Then I do the same thing for point B. 1, 2, that puts me right here. So I put a dot and I call it B prime. And then I'm going to move point C, 1, 2 to the left. Puts me right here. So I'm going to call that point C prime. And then you're going to connect your dots as best you can. Okay, it doesn't have to be a work of art. And so there's my translated triangle. Okay. It moved 2 units to the left. All right, so here's where, let's look at this one. If we look, they didn't give us the x comma y. They just gave us the rule. Okay, so if you look, we got x minus 2 and we have y plus 1. So they want us to do more than one thing. So we have to write down, figure out what they want us to do, write that down before we start trying to move anything around. So since it says x minus 2, remember x you go left or right. So if it's minus, that means the 2 is negative. So would we go to the left or to the right if it's negative 2? We would go left 2. Okay. Now we look at the other one. It says y plus 1. Okay. Plus 1 for the y. Remember, y is where we go up or down. So we go up if it's positive, we go down if it's negative. So it's positive, so it wants us to do what? Go up 1. So to do this translation, we have to do 2 things. We have to move every point to the left 2, and we have to also move it up 1. So again, doesn't really matter which way you start. I'll just start with A. We want to go left 2. So 1, 2, and then up 1. Up 1. That puts us right here. Okay, so that's our A prime. That's our translated A. So, hold on, lost something. So if we go left 2, up 1, it puts us right here. So we call that A prime. Now we do the same thing for point B. We go left 2, up 1, it would put us right here. Okay, and so counting is going to be important here. Take your time. Don't miscount. So we call that B prime. And then same thing for C. We're going to go left 2, up 1, puts us right here. And you can leave your count marks. I'm just taking them off so I can see what I've got better. Oh, I lost my B. Let's put my dot back. All right. Then you carefully connect your dots. Okay, we know we want it to look like a triangle. Okay, it should look exactly the same as the original. It just has slid left and up. All right, so let's try this one. Got another triangle. They like triangles, apparently. We got x plus 5, y minus 5. So first we need to write down what they want us to do. So again, I say, okay, plus 5 on x. It's positive 5. That means we want to go to the right 5. Okay, if they wanted us to go left 5, they would have put minus 5. Now we have to look at the y part. Y minus 5, so there's a negative 5. Remember, y, you go up or down. So when do we go down with y? When it's negative. When do we go up? When it's positive. This is a minus 5, so that means we're going to go down 5. So once again, we got to take each point, take it right 5, and then down 5, and put our new translated point. So again, it doesn't matter if I want to start with C, you can start with A, you can start with B. They want us to go right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now don't put a dot there because you got to do step 2. Step 2 says now you got to go down 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that puts me right here. And again, you can leave your count on. You can take it off. I just take it off so we can see the picture better. So we're right here. Okay, and that we just move point C. So this is our C prime to show that we've translated it. Now we do the same thing with A or B, wherever you want to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't put a dot. You're not done. Now we have to go. Oh, I did that wrong, didn't I? Let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go right. We want to go right first. Don't put a dot. We have to do the other part. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Puts me right here. Okay, again, I would, once you count, take this off. And you may not need that. Maybe you are good with graphing and you can count. It's fine. Okay, so we just went right 5, down 5 with A. So that's A prime. Now we have to do the same thing with B. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's right 5. Don't put a dot. Not done. Now we got to go down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ends up right here. Okay, again, leave it or take it off. You decide. So we just moved point B. So this is our new point B. Call it B prime. Carefully connect your dots. Okay, it should look exactly like your original shape. It just should have moved. Okay, and if you look at that, that looks like a diagonal translation. It just means they did 2. Okay, they went right 5 and down 5. They put a combo. So that's translation. Translation just means slide. Okay. Now, let's look at reflection. A reflection is exactly what it sounds like. It's like if you were looking into a mirror. Okay, it means every point is flipped across the line of reflection. They will also sometimes call that the mirror line, but most of the time they'll call it the line of reflection. Okay, so what you want, the key word you want to remember for reflection is flip. Okay, your key word for reflection is flip. Translate as slide, reflection is flip. Okay. And you have to remember that it goes across. It's not on your line of reflection. It goes across your line of reflection. It's like it's jumping over it. Okay. The other thing you want to make sure you realize is that it's the same size. Okay, just like your translation, your reflection is the same size as the original. Okay, it's just going to be somewhere else on your graph. So there is some terminology that you need to remember with graphing when it comes to lines of reflection. The first thing is where your x-axis is. So your x-axis, remember, is your horizontal axis on a graph. Okay. This is your x. Make sure you know where that is because they are going to reflect across the x-axis. So if you look, okay, here's my pre-image. I know that's my pre-image because I see the A, the B, and the C. My reflection, okay, is this one down here. And notice what they did. This triangle has flipped over my purple line. It's literally flipped over. Okay, and if we were actually to fold it where the purple line is, our two images would overlap completely. They would match up completely. And that's what they mean by it's a mirror image, okay, or why they call it a mirror line. So this gets a little bit harder. You got to be careful. When we flip the top triangle over the purple line, okay, you got to be careful where your points end up. So when we do that, A ends up all the way down here. This would be my A prime. Okay. B would end up right here. B is my second point, so that would be B prime. And C would end up here, C prime. Okay, now another thing about a reflection, just so you can see it, is they're the same distance from your line of reflection. So in other words, how far is it from C to your line of reflection? Well, it's 1 unit, right? So when you reflect it, your new C, when you are doing the transformation, should be exactly 1 space from your line of reflection. So if you look, here's my line of reflection, here's my new C. Yes, it's 1 space. Okay. Same thing holds for B. B originally is 1 space away from my line of reflection. So when I reflect it, it needs to be 1 space away, and it is. Same thing with A. It's a little harder to see with A, but A is 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces from my line of reflection. So when I reflect it, it needs to be the same amount away from my line of reflection. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's another way you can tell if you did your reflection correctly. Okay, all your reflected points need to be the same distance. Now, they also will reflect it over the y-axis. So again, make sure you can locate the y-axis on a graph. This is the y-axis. It's the vertical axis on your graph. So again, if we look, here's my pre-image, A, B, and C. This one right here is my pre-image. So if I reflect it over the y-axis, if I flip it over that y-axis, notice, hey, look, B originally is 1 space from my line of reflection. So when I reflect it, B prime is also 1 away. Okay, and you can see that it is from your line of reflection. C currently is 1, 2, 3 away from my line of reflection. So when I reflect it, it also needs to be 3 away from my line of reflection. 1, 2, and it is. So this is my C prime. And again, we just use the primes to show the transformation, whether it's a translation, reflection, rotation, dilation. That just shows that we've done something to the shape. And then point A up here is 1, 2, 3. So when I reflect it, I have to make sure it's 1, 2, 3 points away from my line of reflection. Okay, and so that's why this would be my A prime. Now, they have little rules that you can memorize, okay? Because sometimes these can get a little complicated. And these are just rules that you are going to have to look at. You're going to have your notes out to do. Okay. If they want you to go across the x-axis, you take your point and you make the y part of it negative. The x stays the same, the y becomes negative. Okay. So let's see what that looks like. That's the rule. Because it gets too hard to try to do these without the rule. Okay, it can get very complicated. So it says reflect across the x-axis. Okay, so when I want to reflect across the x-axis, I know that my pre-image, which is my xy, has to become, to get my image, x and make the y negative. That's how I reflect over the x-axis. Here's my x-axis, so we want to flip over that line. So I use the rule, okay? And I didn't make that up. It's just one of those facts you have to learn for geometry. When you reflect across the x-axis, your x stays the same and you change the sign of your y. So let's look at point A. Here's point A. They tell me it's negative 2, 3. So the rule is if I want to reflect over the x-axis, my x stays the same, so it's going to stay negative 2, but my y changes signs. Okay, I make it negative. So right now it's positive 3. I'm going to change the sign. I'm going to make it negative 3. So to graph A prime, to do the reflection, I'm going to go left 2, down 3, and so that's A prime. excuse me. Now, B is 3, 4. B is 3, 4. Here's B. So again, the rule is you leave the x the same and you make the second number negative. So it's positive 4. We put a negative in front of it. So 3, negative 4, we'd go right 3, down 4. That would put B right there. Now, not done. We got to do C. So again, the x stays the same. So x is 1. The y, we change the sign. We make it negative. So C would be 1, negative 1, which would put it right here. And then you connect your dots. And there is your reflection. All right, so let's look at the rule for when we want to reflect over the y-axis, because when you change axes, your rule will change, which makes sense. So your x-axis says, if you want to go across your y, okay, you got to look at this. There's your original, that's your pre-image. What's the rule? You make the x negative and you leave the y alone. You make the x negative and leave the y alone. So I would, once I realize we're doing y-axis, okay, write down my rule. Okay, to get the new image, I make my x value negative and I leave the y value the same. Okay. So your pre-image is not on here, so you need to draw your pre-image if you haven't realized that. Does everybody see that D, E, and F are not on our graph? So we need to draw it so we can see what we're looking at. So let's go ahead and graph 1, 3, here's D, 4, 2, right 4 up 2, here's E, and 2, negative 1, there's F. Okay, and it appears to be another triangle. So they want us to reflect it over my y-axis. Okay, so the rule is make x negative, keep the y the same. So if D is 1, 3, D prime is going to be, it's positive 1, we make it negative 1. Okay, and then we leave the y alone. So when we graph that, okay, negative 1, 3, you go left 1, up 3, there's my D prime. If my E is 4, 2, my E prime, we're going to make the x value negative, so negative 4, we leave the y alone. So negative 4, 2. So again, left 4, up 2, there's my E prime. Last but not least, point F. If my original point, my pre-image point is 2, negative 1, when I reflect it and do F prime, look at the x. The rule says make it negative, so that becomes negative 2. Do nothing to the y. So F would be left 2, down 1. There is my reflected F. Play connect the dots. And there's my reflection. Now, there are 2 other lines that they can have us reflect across. The first one is y equals x. So again, if you come back up here and look, I'll show you what that looks like in a second. But if they say reflect across y equals x, then notice here's your pre-image, just your xy's. They want you to reverse them. Okay, basically reverse the order. Okay, so let's look at an example of that. It's on the next page. So the line y equals x. Okay, and anytime you forget where this is, like if you're looking at this and you're like, I don't remember what that looks like, you actually can pull up your Desmos and type it in, and Desmos will graph it for you. So you don't have to memorize what it looks like. You just have to remember, oh, I can go to Desmos and look. The line y equals x looks like this, goes through your origin, okay, and it has a slope of 1. Okay, so rise over run is 1 over 1. So when they ask you to reflect over that, that's the line they want you to flip over. Okay, and so what that would look like if we were to draw it would be this. Okay, this is the line y equals x. But again, you don't have to memorize that. You just have to remember, let me type it into Desmos if I forget what y equals x looks like. So again, if you go back and look at what we just highlighted in green, okay, if they want us to reflect over y equals x, the rule is flip your x and y. Okay, so I'm going to write that down. The pre-image to my image, okay, becomes y and then x. Now, again, they didn't graph my picture, so let's go ahead and graph DO and G so we can see what we're looking at. It's 3 points, so it's definitely another triangle. So -5, 1, left 5, up 1, so there's my D. O is -2, 0, so left 2, don't go up or down, so there's O. And G is -4, -2, so left 4, down 2. So there's G. There's O, there's G. Okay. It's a little triangle. Now, they want us to flip over y equals x, which is my purple line. The rule to do that is you just flip your x and y. So if D is -5, 1, okay, when I reflect it, it's going to get my D prime. We're just going to say 1, -5. Okay, you reverse the x and y. So 1, -5 would be right 1, down 5. Make sure you count right. Right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, right here. So there's my D prime. There's my reflection of D. Now we got to do O. Again, you just reverse your x and y. So if O is -2, 0, when I reflect it, it becomes 0, -2. Okay. So 0 means you don't go left or right. -2 means you just go down. So there's O. And then to reflect point G, so get my G prime. G is -4, -2. My rule says flip it. So G prime, or my reflection, would be -2, -4. Okay. Oh, don't forget your prime on your O. So -2 would be left 2, -4 would be down 4. So that would put me right left 2, 1, 2, 3 here. And that would be G prime. So let me move my O, because when I go to make my triangle, it's going to be in the way. Bad drawing. Okay, here's O prime. Play connect your dots. And there is your reflection. All right, the last thing, and you won't see a whole lot of this, but it may pop up, is if they want you to reflect over y equals negative x. Okay, we have a rule for that. So pop back over to this page. Okay, reflect across y equals negative x. There's your pre-image. You flip them or reverse the order, but notice that you also make them both negative. Okay. So switch and negate. It's like our contrapositive, right? All right, so again, if you ever forget what y equals negative x looks like, or maybe you just don't remember at all, then what you do, head over to Desmos, type it in, there it is. Okay, if you ever forget what it's supposed to look like, that's what y equals negative x looks like. So basically it's very similar to y equals x, except instead of going up, it's going down. So this is y equals negative x, and it's going through your origin where your x and y meet. So there's y equals negative x. Okay, again, if you forget that's the line, type it in Desmos. Desmos will show you what it looks like. Now again, if you go back and look at the rule, okay, the rule for this one says flip your x and y and negate. Make them negative. So I'm going to write that here. The pre-image is just your x and y. Okay, the rule for reflecting over y equals x is negative y, negative x. All right, so let's graph our picture first, our pre-image. So negative 3, negative 1, left 3, down 1. So that's my C. Negative 6, negative 3 is my A. So left 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Down 3, 1, 2, 3. There's my A. And I might have to move C again because it's going to be in my way. And then T is left 3 and up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, that's way up there, isn't it? Okay. So, and this is why the rules are going to be super helpful, because when it is going through your line of reflection, sometimes it's hard to do the reflection. People really struggle with seeing how to flip it over something that it's actually going through. So if you use your rule will take care of all of that. So that's what it looks like. It's kind of a tall, skinny triangle. So if I want to reflect point C, so that would make it C prime, then I have to flip my ordered pair. So negative, instead of negative 3, negative 1, it's going to become negative 1, negative 3. But then I also have to make it negative. Now here's my question. It's already negative 1 and negative 3. If I make it negative, do we write double negatives? No, right? We never say negative, negative. Okay, so basically when you see that negative sign, the double negative, what does that really mean? It means positive 1, positive 3. So that's why on this, the other one that we just did, I said change the sign. Okay, because that's what this means really. Okay, if it's a positive number, it becomes negative. If it's a negative number, we don't put double negatives. So if you catch yourself doing this, it's fine, but then realize we don't do double negatives. Rewrite it as positive 1 and 3. So 1, 3 would be right 1, up 3. So here's my reflected C. Now I got to do the same thing for A. So A is negative 6, negative 3. So again, I flip them. That would be negative 3, negative 6. Then I have to negate them. So that'd be negative, negative 3 and negative, negative 6. We don't do that. That would actually just mean positive 3, positive 6. Okay. Don't leave double negatives. You have to negate whatever they give you. So it is already negative. When you negate it, it becomes positive. So we got to graph that. So 3, 6, right 3, up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would put point A prime right there. And then we got to do T. Okay, t started out as negative 3, 7. Our rule is change the order and negate, make it negative. So put a negative on the 7, but I already have a negative on the 3, so that's negative, negative. We don't write it like that. Okay, so this becomes negative 7. Negative, negative 3 is positive. So left 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and up 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I didn't change my color. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. So t actually ends up here, okay, which is why we tell people use the rules, because that would be really hard to come up with just by sight. Some of them you can. Some of them you could probably, like this one we just did for y equals x, you could probably figure out how to reflect that without the rule to get the actual reflection. But when they start crossing over your line of reflection, it's super hard to try to figure out where your points actually should go. So use your rule. All right, the last kind of questions they're going to ask you is to figure out what did they reflect over. So make sure you can identify your pre-image versus your image. So your pre-image is just the letters with no prime marks. So this is your pre-image. So you have to ask yourself one of 3, 4 things. Is my line of reflection my x-axis, my y-axis, or y equals x, or y equals negative x? And so what we tell people to do is just draw them on your picture and see if that's what they flipped over. So y equals, or your x-axis would be this line. Did my pre-image flip over that line to give me my image? No. Okay, right? That is not a line of reflection, and it certainly is not a mirror line, so it's not my x-axis. Okay, so try your y-axis. This is your y-axis. Okay, does it look like my pre-image flipped over my purple line? Okay, and envision it flipping. Okay, remember flipping. Possibly, right? That's a good, I'm going to write it. Looks like it. Okay, now I'm going to check the other two, y equals x. So remember, y equals x does this. Okay. Did they flip over that line to get my image? Okay, so did they flip over my purple line to get my green image to look like my blue image? No, right? And then same thing. You could check y equals x. Y equals x is the same thing. It just goes the other way. So no. Okay, that is not your line of reflection. So yeah, your line of reflection is y equals x. Or sorry, your y-axis. Okay. Now, you could use your rules to look at it too. Like you could say, okay, point L is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. What's L prime? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 5. Positive 4. And figure out which one of your rules tells you to take the original and make your x negative. Okay. If you go back and look, which one talks about your y stays the same but your x becomes negative? This one right here, right? So that's over the y-axis. I just think it's easier to look, personally. All right, so let's look at this one. Pre-image is this one. Your reflection is this one. You can tell by the primes on it. So is it your x-axis? Did they flip over your x-axis? Well, here's your x-axis. Did they flip over that? Did they flip the purple over that red line to get your green shape? Hopefully everybody says no. Then you check your y-axis. Okay. did they reflect over the red line to get your green shape? Okay, hopefully people can see that's not a mirror line. Okay, again, mirror lines, you have the same image just reflected. So then try y equals x. So remember, y equals x, if you forget what it looks like, type it into Desmos. That looks like a mirror line to me, right? Okay, and then you could check y equals negative x, but hopefully you see, oh yeah, that's the line of reflection. Okay. They are mirror images. If I were to fold it on that red line, okay, my purple shape and my green shape would completely overlap. All right, last little one, and this one can get a little tricky because they're going to throw something extra at you. So if we check through all of these, what we would find is none of the four that I wrote work. It's not your x-axis, it's not your y-axis, it's not y equals x, and it's not y equals negative x. So then you're like, well, I don't know what to do. Well, if you go to your graph and if you look at it, here's your pre-image. Okay. Here's what was reflected. Here's what they got when they reflected. So see if you can just draw the mirror line. See if you can draw the line of reflection. And hopefully you can see, if I drew a line right here, we'll pretend that I can draw straight. Okay. Wouldn't that be your line of reflection? Okay. And again, a way to tell, hey, R is one space, so is R prime. Q is 1, 2, 3 spaces, so is Q prime, 1, 2, 3. P is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. P prime is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can tell they're all the same distance from their line of reflection. So the line that I drew in red is the line of reflection. Okay, it's the line that the purple shape flipped over to give you the green shape. So how do we write that? Well, remember, when you have a line like this, all you have to do is figure out what your x value is right here. Okay, so that would be what? Here's your origin, 1 to negative 3. Okay, this point would be negative 3, 0. So your line is going to be x equals negative 3. Okay, just figure out what your ordered pair is. Your ordered pair right there is negative 3, 0. You don't need the y part. Okay. This point right there is negative 3, 0. So your equation is x equals negative 3. And if you're not sure, if you're like, well, I don't know if I wrote that right, because some people want to say it's y equals negative 3. Type it into Desmos. Desmos will graph it for you and show you where x equals negative 3. That's the line I'm looking for. I want it to be vertical. If you accidentally thought it was y equals negative 3, okay, if you type it, you can see, nope, that's not the line. That's not where I want it to be. Let me just make it a different color. So I don't want that line. So this can get complicated if you don't take your time. So take your time. Make sure you have your notes. You definitely, when you're reflecting, want these rules in front of you so you can see what to do to your x and your y. Okay, but just take your time, and if you have any questions, just let us know.